All right, we are recording.
Welcome to the Grift. I am Reverend Al, and this is my co-host Gonzo.
Hey there.
And welcome to this week's shit show.
We're going to have a good time.
Are we?
Maybe.
Price on freedom, so buy into it while supplies last. Changes need to be made. No more curbside baggage. 7 p.m. curfew. Racial profiling will continue with less bitching. We've unified over who to kill, so until I find more relevant scripture to quote, remember, our God is bigger, stronger, smarter, and much wealthier. So wave those flags with pride, especially the white part.
We're selling addictive 24-hour candlelight vigils in TVs. Freedom will be defended at the cost of civil liberties. The viewers are glued to television screens, stuck, cause lots of things seem too sick. I use opportunities to pluck heartstrings for theme music. I show you.
So we got Kash Patel is going to be leading the FBI. Trump has tapped his most loyal, didn't he lie?
I know I, for one, am very excited about the idea of one of the architects of January 6th being in charge of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. That fucking excites me in ways I do not have words to fully express.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
And then let's see. We got Trump's BRICS tariff threat because, you know, we're going to have the legal stability of Russia and the, you know, domestic tranquility of India and the freedoms of China.
The freedoms. There was another one they talked about Brazil, and I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, these countries are
Yeah.
going to be the core way that the U.S. dollar is going to get upended, really. You know, because we know that they're very stable countries.
Very stable. I mean, is there a country more stable than Russia?
No, not one I can think of. But no, it looks like we're going to be facing trade war threats because, of course, we are, just from the get-go.
Yeah.
Syria, wow. So the rebels are back. They've taken Aleppo.
They never really go away.
They didn't, no.
They never really go away.
It's like, you know, it's does anybody watch Star Wars? They just stick around and come back. And let's see. We got a big-ass snowstorm covering parts of the U.S. over Thanksgiving weekend. That's going to be fun. And let's see. We got a big tax break and border funding. That's what's coming next.
And we have the threats and then the rescinded threats of the tariffs on Mexico and Canada.
Right.
Because he was going to impose 25% tariffs on both countries until they closed their borders and prevented drugs from entering the United States, because it is other countries' responsibility to make sure that contraband that we ban that they might not does not enter our country. That's that's their job, not our job.
My favorite of that is absolutely how the two, like, so Trump tweets they've decided to acquiesce and do all the things I want tweet, right?
Yeah.
He makes that
Yeah.
dumb Truth Social post. And then the president of Mexico turns around and basically reiterates their existing policy
Yes.
as if nothing in that conversation happened. Like, it's,
Fortunately, he cannot speak Spanish, so he could not read what she said.
yeah. So Mexico's
we-
not changing its policy, but
We
Trump
avoided
thinks they
that.
are.
I have a feeling that is a pattern we're going to see over and over and over again over the next 4 years. Him making some ridiculous, outlandish, over-the-top threat, and then rescinding it because he got his way when he got absolutely nothing at all for it.
Right.
But his base doesn't care. They will assume that he's telling the truth, because who can't trust a narcissistic billionaire with a social media addiction?
Speaking of which, that Lebanese billionaire who's going to be the advisor on the Middle East,
Yeah.
that's going to be a fun one.
Yeah.
Watch
I can't imagine.
that space.
It's going to be a fun 4 years.
Yeah. So that's the big news going on. Anyone you want to really dig into?
There's some alleged, very fun sex tape news
Oh,
that dropped.
no. Sex tape news.
Sex tape news. Allegedly,
Allegedly.
and I haven't gone to Twitter to watch the alleged video, but the alleged video has allegedly been leaked on Twitter.
Okay.
It's a sex tape, an oral sex tape between Nick Fuentes and Destiny. And if there's one thing I can promise all of you right now watching this, no matter how big we may get, I will never give Nick Fuentes a blowjob. Not because I'm against blowjobs, but because I'm against Nick Fuentes having an orgasm under any circumstances whatsoever.
Wait, so Destiny?
That is what is alleged.
Wow.
I just know what I saw on TikTok. Like I said, I was not going to go to Twitter to potentially sear my retinas with that.
All right.
But
I know
that
what
is-
I'm doing after the show. I'm sorry, everybody. I don't want to see this,
no,
but
I don't think anybody wants to see that.
I kind of do. Speaking of which,
I get it,
my
but no.
God. So I am torturing myself so that you, the viewers and listeners, don't have to. And I have signed up for a ton of Telegram channels, and I'm on Gab and Rumble. And my God, the nonsense. Now, which the first fascinating thing is that Nick Fuentes streams his consciousness all day long, like 8 hours a day, every day. He just
That's
posts.
most of the right-wing media influencers. Their content generation is just massive.
Right.
They
There's-
create more, like, we have day jobs.
yeah.
We do things. We can't afford to sit here for 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, talking at a camera.
I would like to.
Yet.
Give us your
Yet.
money.
Yet.
Give us all of your money.
All of your money.
And we will make
We will live that
this
dream.
a dream.
Maybe we'll even get a Twitch account someday.
Oh, that'd be, I mean, yeah, you could
Get a
just,
Twitch account.
you could watch us as we
We could
like-
play Stick Fight the game.
stick fight the game. You could just
great.
see a little of this action going on under
Yeah.
the table because I know that you guys are there in Twitch for that. But
It's a shame that they banned the hot tub booby streamers because we could have made a pretty goddamn penny.
oh man, us in a hot tub.
I know.
Show
We'd
our
need a hot
boobies.
tub. We would need money for a hot tub.
Give us money for a hot tub.
I don't have money for a hot tub yet.
Right.
I don't have space for a hot tub either, but I don't definitely don't have the goddamn money.
I mean, I could sell the BMW, but I don't want to because I love driving it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so-
fair.
Yeah. All right. So there's allegedly a sex tape.
Allegedly a sex tape.
Yeah. So as I was talking about these content generation out there, my focus in the last couple of days has just been really digging into what they're talking about all the damn time, and it's a mess. Like, now the first thing I noticed, the cryptosphere.
Okay.
Like, it's
Always healthy.
very healthy. But now I know why every time you run into a crypto bro out in the real world and you're not into crypto, let's say you barely pay attention to it. Maybe you have some, maybe you don't, but you don't pay much attention to like that world.
I have a small amount of crypto.
Yeah, I had a little bit.
I was given $5 free when I signed up for Coinbase, and that's why I have like 2.8 million Shiba Inu
Right.
that are now worth $66 last I checked. So
Ooh, big returns.
big returns on free money.
But so that's just it. So the thing I noticed about it is that it is all hype all the time. Like hype. Now you see it on Twitter a lot, but it's in the like Telegram world and in Gab particularly, right? Not Gab, sorry, Rumble. Rumble. Telegram and Rumble. The crypto world is just hyping one coin after another with these slick videos and these slick ads. And they just keep hyping the same coins and talking about moving from one coin to the next and how the next thing is going to be the big thing. And they're always talking about massive returns. This one's going to return 200%, 300%, 1,000%.
Yeah, I was just talking to a guy the other day in person who was talking about how he was trying to get on the initial sale of a brand new coin, and he was in the queue and he couldn't make it happen. And if he had, it would have been a several 1,000% return on his investment.
Yeah. It's
Which you can do if you're on there. If you're there day one, you can do that. But
but
you have to have major money already
right.
because the buy-ins are always huge.
Yeah.
So if you don't have 10 grand to drop on a new coin, you're not getting any of that new coin. You're not
Right.
getting that return on the investment. So it's big returns for people who already have money, not for you.
Yeah, and so you get the big returns for people who already have money, especially in the initial offerings or whatever thing they're trying to pump up. But it's all pump and dumps. It's this stuff. If these were stocks, none of this would be legal.
All of it would be illegal.
Every
Single.
yeah. And that's just it. There are no assets, no company, no thing behind it. It's just this concept of a concept of an idea.
You might have a vague sense of who started the coin.
Yeah. And sometimes there's some neat gimmick behind it. Like it does this thing with transactions or whatever, but it doesn't. Who's using it?
Yeah.
Nobody. And they just hype them. Hype, hype, hype. And the more it's hyped, the more it boosts up in its initial offering. And I noticed that about this, and it's like, wow, this grift is huge. This thing is it is massive, but it would be nothing ethical about it. Which, I mean, if you're gonna make money on it, great, go ahead. Just be careful because
I mean, honestly, though, if you want to make really big money, there's no ethical way to do it anyway.
right. But be careful because rug pulls come. Like that's the thing about these coins too. You look at them, and some of them they go up 2,000%, and then they're down 90% 5 days later. And if you're not out by the time that happens, you're
Yeah. You have
lost out.
to either be hyper fixated on it, which a lot of people are,
Mhm.
or you have to have like auto trade set up to as soon as it hits a certain price, you dump it all
Yeah.
and walk away. But that's still you're dumping it all. You're crashing the coin as you're closing out.
Yep, and that's the nature of the pump and dump. The other thing I noticed is Andrew Tate's production quality is both the worst and the best.
How do you mean?
So he does these videos. My God, they are stylized with him like wearing a hoodie and like wolf furs and shit, and like AI background.
Right.
You know, and he's standing around a fire talking about like being a man is pain. Men suffer. That's what makes men. Men are experiencing pain, and you must experience pain to be a man. And if you're not experiencing pain,
You're not a man.
And it's over and over and over again. He's got like 50 of these things out there, and like it's like the best worst content. I get why young guys are fixated with it because as he's talking, you're getting these clips of him in an MMA fight and these like private MMA fight scenes where they're in this mansion with dudes in suits all drinking whiskey and smoking cigars, betting on two guys in the center of a ring, and then they all get out and get in their Bugattis, right?
Yeah.
And gentlemen, those of you who are listening to Andrew Tate, that's not going to be you.
No.
No.
And you shouldn't want it to be.
Right. Like here's the thing. Most of those guys are probably going to wind up in prison if they ever get caught doing whatever they're doing, which is generally sex trafficking.
Most of them are not as wealthy as they pretend to be. That shit is rented
Yeah.
for the day.
Yeah.
A good chunk of it. Not all of it, but
Go down to Miami and hang out for an afternoon, and you will see dudes in rented Lambos, rented Ferraris all day long, every day. They get out and dance in the middle of the street like they're a big baller, and it's just dumb.
it's all for show.
Yeah, it's flash. They rent the house. It's an Airbnb. It's you know.
And it's all show designed to impress other men who were impressed by that kind of ostentatious wealth.
Yeah.
No woman you want to be involved with gives a shit about any of that.
No.
Ever.
No. Like, look, there are women.
No
who
one
are-
you want to be involved with gives a shit about that ever,
No.
regardless of your orientation. But
especially if you're a normal person. Like if you
Yeah.
are, if you're like most of us, the rest of us, just Joe Schmo on the fucking street, like us.
yeah,
Nobody you know is really all that impressed with that. Like you see it and you're like, oh shit, that's kind of cool. That's about it.
and then we kind of laugh at you.
Right. Like, and
Sorry, we do.
Like-
I do.
you know, there are women who are very into that stuff. They're usually terrible. I've dated two of them who are kind
Yeah.
of that materialistic,
Yeah, I've gotten exceptionally lucky in that it has never happened to me.
and yeah, like you know, here's the thing: they're not pleasant to be around. They're always looking for what's in it for them. They're always looking for the best thing. Who's going to take them on their next vacation? You know, they're not loyal.
No.
They're very rarely kind.
It's
or
all
sweet.
transactional all the time.
Yeah. And that relationship, like it even if you wind up in it for way too long, like I may
Years.
have, years, like I may have, you're never fun. It's not enjoyable. You just feel drained all the goddamn time because you're chasing somebody who always wants more and more than you're going to give. And so by aspiring to be that kind of person, you're attracting the kind of person that's going to use you. It's not healthy,
No.
not in any way. Yeah, so that's my advice on that. Don't be an Andrew Tate guy, and if you're gonna be an Andrew Tate guy, just know that the if you do land the materialistic hot model chick, she's gonna use you. And-
Right. And you're probably just renting her too.
Yeah, exactly. Which leads me to the dating culture.
Dating culture.
Whew, man. If you've been on
Again, I have been very, very lucky.
you have been.
I have been very lucky.
Have you guys been on TikTok lately?
I am on TikTok every day.
All right. What do you see when you look at TikTok dating culture?
I see a lot of very bad, mutually exclusive advice being thrown around nonstop.
100%.
Sometimes from the same people.
Yeah.
Like between videos, they give explicitly mutually exclusive advice that directly contradicts the last thing they said.
Absolutely. That's
And both are wrong.
oh no shit.
That's the impressive part. It's all wrong, and it's mutually exclusive and contradictory.
Yeah. So here's what I noticed. One, there's not everybody. There's a lot of talk about masculinity and femininity, and feminine energy, masculine energy, what an alpha is, what beta is, whatever nonsense. And now they don't seem to be on the same page. The creator doesn't seem to be on the same page while between videos, like you said, but between two different creators talking about what they want, and both of them have 1 million views. And then you look at it and go, so how is anybody going to follow this advice? Because they switch from one to the other, and
Right.
they get conflicts. Now,
It's almost like masculinity and femininity are an arbitrary spectrum.
yeah. Now, I think there are maybe some biological things that are at play. I'm not saying that it's all biology. I'm saying that there are some things with our hormone levels, etc.
Yeah, different hormones affect your mood, your behavior,
Right.
how your brain works, all that stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Physiology.
Mhm.
It's definitely real.
Right. And
Biological sex exists.
yes, and that's important to recognize that.
Mhm.
But most of it's still culture. And
Yeah. You can even look at simple things like you go back 100 years and pink was a boy's color and blue was a girl's color.
poetry. Men used to write all the poetry.
All the poetry.
And lots
It
and
was
lots of-
weird that women even tried.
Right. Sappy poetry.
Real fucking aggressively maudlin.
Alexander the Great wrote and liked sappy poetry with big bottom energy for dudes.
Yeah.
And he's the poster child for masculine of his time.
One of the
right?
greatest conquerors in the history of the human species.
Yep. And he gave big bottom energy. These things aren't easily overlaid, you know? And so what I noticed is that you get this mutually exclusive advice. But one thing that does stand out is there are a few key elements that get repeated over and over again. And I think there's some truth to them. So, because I also asked a number of friends, men and women, in the last couple of days to tell me what they wished the other gender knew, right? And I kept getting communication from women, like a lot about communication and emotional availability, but also the idea that men should act in some kind of protector role. And like that seems to be repeated over and over and over again. And of course, there's the security of being a man. Like, even I'm not a big guy, right? But I'm stronger than women of my same size and frame.
Yeah.
Right? And so, being able to, provide a sense of security. And now in our current society, security, because we're not facing roving bands of marauders anymore, or, there's not bears attacking. What is security? Well, it tends to lean towards the financial now, right? Or at least a sense of stability, one of the two.
Right.
Um,
Because I think in terms of safety and security, people's financial situations are probably where they feel the most precarious, even if they're doing well now.
Yes, and for a lot of women who, they worry about things like the gender and wage gap. Whether or not if they decide they're going to start a family, that's going to pause or impede their career in some ways. Or
You're definitely not keeping your job while you're giving labor.
right,
You have to take time off.
exactly,
And you should be able to.
and that's where a lot of the wage gap actually comes from. Fascinatingly, is usually like the time off for maternity leave, and that like gap where women tend to focus on raising children, right? So in the professional fields, it creates the biggest gap. So like physicians is a great example. They take 6, 8, 9, 10 months or a year off from their career to take care of a newborn.
And the higher the wage field you're in, the easier it is to take more time off because you're able to save more before you're taking the time off.
Exactly.
You also probably get better benefits when it comes to maternity leave.
Exactly. But there's a opportunity cost from that time. So during that same period of time, the men in the field that didn't take time off to help rear a child or take care of a child,
They're still making their full wages.
right. Not only are they still making their full wages, but they tend to get the next promotion or raise that
They were there for.
exactly. And so that creates a big chunk of the wage gap. It doesn't entirely disappear, but when you look at low wage fields or working class fields, usually there's almost no wage gap between men and women, right? Because
The position pays what the position pays.
exactly.
And it's
only-
harder to get away with, especially if you're looking at something that's an hourly field. It's hard to get away with charging different hourly rates for the same job without people finding out that's what you're doing and being pretty goddamn pissed off about it.
Exactly. So you see that, and that changes the calculus for what's security for some women. Because if they take time off to help raise a child or take care of a child, then that time off creates a financial insecurity. So having the idea that their man can take care of them seems to be a concept that is repeated over and over and over again. But a lot of people are taking it to this really ugly materialistic extreme. And
How bad we getting? How bad we talking here?
oh boy.
Enlighten me, because I have my FYP on TikTok does not feed me much of that nonsense, and I have not gone out of my way to scour the darker corners of social media for it. Because while it's hard to tell, I do actually value my mental health somewhat.
I don't.
We know you don't.
Well, actually, that's not true. I'm in therapy. I take workshops and shit. Come on. But
It's true. I've
but-
seen the growth.
yeah, but I also punish myself a lot. So darker webs of this. On the side of like the women influencer world, it is a lot of heavy materialism. Like if he doesn't take you to a nice, expensive dinner on the first date, and now I've taken women on nice, expensive dinners, but those are expensive.
Those are expensive. They're for special occasions.
Right.
Anniversaries, birthdays, stuff like
Exactly.
that, where you really want to make it memorable.
Right. Not
Something special.
not everyone can afford it. And look, if you make $50,000 a year or $60,000 a year or $70,000 a year, a $400 dinner is a lot.
Yeah, you get one or two of those a year,
Yeah.
and they mean something.
Right.
They're important.
Did I take women out on nicer dates when I was making $190,000 a year?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I had it. But not everybody has that. In fact, it's less than 10% of the population that's making that kind of money. Right? Like, not everybody's doing it, or 15. It's about 15% of the population. Not everybody can. And,
Yeah.
that changes the calculation. But there's like this expectation out there that happens. There's this weird thing that I keep seeing over and over again, which is before and after date expenses. That's gross. It's like this idea that you want to be cash apped. I'm shitting you not.
Wait. Explain this to me, because I don't actually understand what you're talking about.
All right.
What?
Yeah. So there are women out there
Mhm.
suggesting to other women that on dates, when they put on their makeup and do their hair and
Mhm.
wear whatever they're going to wear, all
Mhm.
of those things are costs, they're expenses, right?
They send a bill?
And they send a bill.
They send a bill.
They send a Cash App request or a Venmo request for a portion of the expenses, like the cost of the Uber ride to meet them, the like $20 towards their, they've got $200 worth of Sephora that they own, or $400 worth of that shit. And well, it's $20. They want the $20 for that.
Write this shit off on their fucking taxes at the end of the year like a business expense.
Yeah. And then not only that, but see the after date expenses, because just in case they're gonna go home with you, they want to make sure there's Uber money and Plan B money. I'm not kidding.
I can almost understand Uber.
I can understand.
I can understand Uber. Like if I'm I don't mind facilitating someone's Uber ride back and forth.
Right, that's not a big deal.
It's definitely, especially on a first date, would be weird to pick them up, put them in that situation where they are forcibly beholden to you for their, transportation.
Right.
Especially if you live in a city that doesn't have good public transit.
Yeah.
But if you're in New York or Philly or Chicago, all of this is moot. You take the fucking train.
Right. And so
It's like $3 each way. Take the fucking train. Get a monthly pass. Take the fucking train.
if your city has good public transit, take the fucking train.
If your city has good public transit, you better goddamn appreciate that good public transit, because I will tell you, living in a city that does not is fucking misery sometimes.
Yeah, you live in a place, 3.5 million people here, and we have awful public transit and awful roads. And so the combination
And
is
terrible traffic.
terrible traffic. And there's worse out there. But yeah, this is just awful here. But yeah, so there's this concept that like the men are supposed to just provide that and take them out on a nice date. And then once they start dating, they want to be showered with gifts, jewelry, flowers, chocolates, gifts, trips, over and over and over again. It's a hyper materialism that, frankly, is gross.
This would explain why, if you look at surveys on the topic, Gen Z seems to think that unless you're making $400,000 a year, you're poor.
Right. That's
Which, don't expect to make $400,000 a year
yeah.
doing any job.
Right. The survey is fascinating because like every
Other generation is so reasonable.
is very reasonable about it, and it ticks up with each generation. Weirdly enough, Gen X, oddly enough, went downward. Like it's the one where they're like, oh yeah, we can get by with less, which I think kind of makes sense. Like
They were able to like really take advantage of a good housing market
right,
20 years ago
exactly.
when they were coming out of college.
Yeah, so
They
they're
got
like-
lucky. They had very good timing
Mhm.
in that, and that alone will help your bottom line
Yeah,
immeasurably when you don't have housing to worry about as a
right.
major expense.
Yeah, so the boomers still think you need like $100,000 a year to get by, which I mean makes sense. Their
Yeah.
expenses, they're getting older, blah blah blah. Gen X, they did really well with that housing market, so they're at like 80 or some shit like that.
Yeah.
I can't exactly remember. Then the millennials are at like 140, 150 to get by comfortably. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we get to Gen Z.
Like
and
$500,000.
$500,000.
Go fuck yourself.
Right. There are not a lot of $500,000 a year jobs out there. Once again,
Well, they're going to be influencers.
yeah,
They're going to be influencers.
you're all going to be influencers, every single one of you.
Maybe that's how we achieve like egalitarian communism. We all become influencers. We all just redistribute all of the wealth in the country amongst ourselves
The great
through donos
monetization.
and Patreon. We just level the playing field. Everybody makes like $200,000 a year because we're all just giving one another all of our money
right. And
in
so
this big circle jerk. I don't hate the idea,
I actually don't.
but I
It's-
don't see it happening.
But that seems to be the ecosystem that's kind of almost being built, but it can't work that way. It just economies can't function off of that.
Especially when you're trying to build that sort of system out of a group of people who do not have money to begin with.
Right. It's impressive. But yeah, so that's the hyper materialistic side. Another thing that I keep seeing over and over again. Now I'm just going to just address the stuff on the women's side, and then I'm going to move over to the men.
Okay.
So how would I put it? Women have this desire to have highly masculine men, right? That are men.
Whatever the fuck that means.
High value men. You hear that phrase over time. High value men. Because I'm a high value woman. Then they also want them to be emotionally available and sensitive. But
which that's a reasonable request.
It
You
is.
should be emotionally available and sensitive in all of your relationships, romantic and otherwise.
Right. But then they give advice that kind of cuts against the emotional availability and availableness thing. Like
How
the-
so?
So, like, they'll talk about a date afterwards. They'll be like, and this man, he was talking about, how hurt he was in the last relationship, and he had some trust issues, and I didn't have time for that kind of feminine energy.
Yeah, that's not healthy.
It's not healthy. It's like, what?
I understand you don't want to be trauma dumped on during a first date, but there is going to be some sort of emotional vulnerability expressed when you're getting to know someone for the first time and talking about your respective lives.
Right.
Like, it's just unavoidable.
And I'm not trying to dump on it here. I'm just saying I got the sense from the conversation that during their date, like, she very much talked about her past dates, her dating history too, and how things did and didn't work, right?
Mhm.
And was emotionally available herself. Like, here are my traumas. And then when he was giving his, she thought he was giving off feminine energy. And ladies, don't settle for a guy that gives off feminine energy. It's like, you hear that, you're like, what? Like,
That's deranged.
yeah. And so it's like, well, pick a lane. You want the masculine man, but you want to be emotionally available, but you don't actually want to hear about what his struggles are like. So you got to decide what lane you want to be on here. And how would I put it? You don't want to ever be trauma dumped, like you said.
Right.
And you don't want somebody who's just going to be a whiny bitch all the time.
Yeah.
Nobody likes
Nobody likes that. We all know someone like that, and yeah, nobody wants that.
Yeah, right. But if you're dating somebody and you're in a relationship with them, your man, no matter how stoic and tough and cool, like as a cool cumber he is, he's gonna have really bad days. He's gonna have days where he wants to cry. He's gonna have days where things really are hurting.
Yeah.
And
And he needs to be able to express that emotionally and not just punch holes in the wall.
right, because it goes from holes in the wall to maybe holes in you. If
It escalates very quickly.
right, and that's not healthy. And the same goes with if you need him to be a provider, like don't make that a soul sucking thing where it's an expectation that he's always doing expensive things for you. The people giving that kind of advice don't seem to understand that people's finances have limitations. That if you're not reciprocating, like you're not helping out or contributing, you just feel like a drain.
Yeah.
Right. And, so
And
that's-
it's difficult to bring enough to a relationship purely based on like interpersonal interaction to make up for that.
right.
That's just, you would not accept that from anyone else doing it to you, so you shouldn't do it to anyone else.
Yeah, because
It's some golden rule shit. It's real fucking basic.
even personal interaction and emotional support and great sex, that those three things are nice and all, but you have to materially contribute in some ways, like
Yeah.
be it helping out with tasks and errands, helping clean up, helping with the bills, whatever the case may be. You've got to bring something to that table too, so that it's not all emotional labor on one end and financial labor on the other, because that gets uneven and stressful, and both sides tend to resent each other over time.
Yeah, that's not the foundation for a good, healthy, long-lasting relationship.
Not at all. All right, so now let's talk about toxic shit on the men's side.
Oh, this should be fun. I'm sure this is some very well-reasoned and healthy advice that these lads are giving.
Yeah. So one of my favorite ones, I think you saw that I did the TikTok on what how settling versus accepting character traits about somebody are two different things. And
Absolutely.
you will get none of that advice from these influencers on TikTok. They think that everything is settling. Anything that you don't like at all in any way, shape, or form, that rubs you the wrong way or vibes you the wrong way, if you do it, it's settling. if you accept it. And that's
Not how that works at all.
no. Steve and I are good friends, right?
Absolutely. For
Um,
years now.
Yeah, many
I
years.
can't even remember how many at this point. 7, 8, something like that.
I know there are traits about Steven that I don't like, like when they happen, like that rub me the wrong way. I know that there are traits about me.
It's very true.
Yeah, like that.
You are a lot sometimes.
I can be a lot sometimes.
You can be a lot sometimes.
But guess what?
I'm never on the receiving end of it, but you can be a lot sometimes. I've watched what other people go through.
Fair. I'm a lot.
But we all are.
Right. Like, I can be pretty extra sometimes, and you can be really kind of like volatile sometimes. I love you for it, but it happens. Here's the beautiful thing about it. We're still friends,
Yeah.
right? And we've got a good working relationship,
Yep.
and we accept that we have differences.
We wouldn't be sitting here doing this if we didn't.
Right. Everybody has differences from you. And if you're considering like something as trivial as somebody you're dating vapes, and you let that build, and this was actually a TikTok, I shit you not, where accepting that somebody vapes and they vape and it bothers you, but you don't say anything, and you just hope that they'll change someday, but you go with it because you're a nice guy. And they kept saying that makes me a nice guy to like that and to accept it. But then eventually you just get tired of it. You dump them, and then you break their heart because you couldn't get over them vaping.
And even if you have that much of a problem with vaping, you can talk to them about it in a healthy way.
Right. But if you have that big of a problem with vaping, don't start the relationship with them in the first
No.
place. I think it's a trivial, stupid thing
You
to
have
not.
you have that big of a problem with vaping. You should have tried being alive in the 90s when everyone smoked.
Also that. Yes.
Everyone smoked. I've never been a smoker. At least half the people I've been involved with have been.
Yeah.
You just get over it.
Right. But if you have that big of a problem with somebody vaping, don't date them. What you don't do is build a resentment about it for like weeks or months while like somebody's falling in love with you, and then break their heart because they had a trait you didn't like. It's silly. It's the same with, let's say they're a little bit messy. They're bad at, doing the laundry or putting it away or whatever.
I am those things,
Yeah, same.
especially the laundry.
Yep.
Very bad about laundry.
So bad. But so you're bad at that, and you don't like that about your partner. Like, you can talk about it in a healthy way, in a way that gets them to like put some effort towards it.
Yeah. It's like, hey, I would really appreciate it if you could work on this.
Yeah. But let's say it's a thing that they can never fully work on to your standard. Okay. Well, you got two choices in life. You can accept that they're never going to do it to your full standard. Now, that doesn't mean you let them never do it. You have that conversation.
Yeah.
And you get them to do some of it. But let's say they'll never go to your full standard. Well, you're going to have to either alter your standard or not be in that relationship, but don't build a resentment around it. It's unhealthy. And that you're not settling. Also, if like your partner like doesn't fold laundry, but they'll wash and dry it, and then they're bad at folding it, and you're like, okay, well, I will. You're not settling. You're dividing the labor. They're actually going to do the washing and drying of the laundry for you, and you fold it and put it away. You've divided up labor between each other. That's not a settling thing.
No, that's cooperation.
Yeah.
Cooperation is important in any relationship.
Is it?
It's shocking. I know.
I mean, look.
And like that goes both ways. Like, you can't expect people to do everything for you, and you can't expect to be the one who's doing everything either. You can't have that unhealthy standard for yourself where you don't ask for help ever because you don't believe that you as the man should be asking a woman for help with anything.
Right. And that's the other thing is so the men out there are giving advice about leading and having submissive women, and you want a woman who submits to you. Like, all right. Again, I know lots of women are looking for that protector role. That doesn't make you a master.
No. submission belongs in the bedroom and nowhere else.
Right.
That's a place where it can be appropriate.
Yeah. Now, since a lot of men are socialized to, one, take charge and deal with solutions rather than problems, I understand where it gets led that way,
Mhm.
right? And two, since we're socialized to, you know, uh, not see ourselves of any value unless we're providing things, like unless we're
Right.
doing something. You know,
We have
can-
to create and provide and make and give and
Right. That's a socialized trait that we're all enduring. And it gets internalized in some really unhealthy ways. But that doesn't mean that the other person is going to submit to you. You got to build a healthy relationship where what you're doing is providing as much as you can within your limits and meeting your up to your boundaries, and they're helping you divide that labor, and you're each taking over your spaces. And so, yeah, maybe women are better at the emotional labor and men are better at the providing. And that doing those things will help you feel value, right, with each other in your own way. But that doesn't mean either side is supposed to do all of it.
Yeah.
And you don't own your woman.
yeah. To put it in business terms, every relationship is a partnership, not a sole proprietorship.
Right.
Your partner is not your property.
Yep.
They are not your capital. You do not own them.
Right. God, the entitled expectations of guys out there on the dating influencer world, they're very much like, if she doesn't text you back in 2 days, dump her. If she is, not listening to you and taking your advice, get rid of her. Like, it's like, well, we just met a month ago. Why would she be listening to me and taking my advice right away?
Why have you proven yourself capable of giving advice worth listening to?
Right.
What have you done to deserve that, to have earned that?
Yep. And never talk of yourself as a high value anything. It's egocentric.
You can determine your own self-worth to yourself. You cannot determine your value to other people.
Yeah.
They get to decide that for you.
But these guys do that constantly. They talk about it in terms of their value. And like, you're a high value man. You're a grinder. And if you're not working on, bettering yourself at all times and getting your finances straight, you're not a man. Like,
What?
yeah.
Yeah. That's tragically unhealthy.
Yeah, very, very unhealthy. And so I've been digging into this space, and it's just kind of gross. And I'm going to be doing a lot more of that to kind of like.
That sounds very fun for you.
It is. It's,
I'm sure I'll see the aftermath.
Oh God, I'm going to get broken, man. Or I will.
Gonna?
Well, I am. All right. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, I am a very broken man.
It's true.
We got that out of the way.
Yeah.
But, I'm going to be digging into this more because
There's a
really,
lot.
There's so much, and some of it is just fucking hilarious.
Yeah, and I'm sure that we will, at times, focus on specific creators and specific videos.
Yeah, there's a few that I've caught a few of their things, and I'm gonna dig in more because
Most of these people, you could do a single person deep dive on them in fairly intense ways and not actually reach the bottom.
yeah. So that has been my endeavor the last couple of days, and it's been a punishment, but I'm doing it.
You're doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Self-flagellation never felt so good.
Well, I know it's felt better.
I feel like we're learning things today, and that's what we're here for, so that's good.
So, what's on your agenda, Stephen? And it's fine to go and pursue that, but be working on yourself first. And I don't mean that in kind of like a grind set way. I don't mean on your finances. I don't mean on your, like, what kind of car or look you have. I mean that,
Being comfortable with being you,
yes.
whoever that is. First of all, figure out whoever that is.
Right.
Like, really examine yourself and figure out who you are, what you want,
Mm-hmm.
what's important to you,
Right.
and why.
Exactly.
Because you might have some unpacking to do. You might have some deprogramming to do. You might have some deconversion to do from really previous unhealthy mindsets that you were led into
Mm-hmm.
by culture, your parents, previous bad experiences that might have put you in a place where you don't fully know why you want what you want, and you're not even sure if what you want is healthy for you. And that's the
Exactly.
important thing. You need to know what's healthy for you
Mm-hmm.
so you can be better at finding that.
Exactly. And with that, don't lose sight of your interests. Trust me. Even if they're the most like man-centric, like, manly interests in the world, there are women who are into them,
Yeah.
right? And focusing on the things that you are into, that you are good at, that you like, you will meet people in those spheres, in those worlds, in those communities that will line up with you. So if you're a car guy, there are car girls.
They're out there.
They're out there,
I know them.
and yeah, I've met lots of them. There are, if you are into anime, there are lots of women who are into anime, like tons of
If you are big into a music scene like some of us might be, there are a lot of potential people out there to meet who are involved in the same type of music as you.
them. Yeah, and don't lose sight of your interests in that. Just really like know who you are, and then focus on doing what you enjoy in communities that also enjoy them, because you're going to meet people, and you're going to meet people that have shared common interests and mutual friends. That's always really helpful. Like,
Yeah.
those things help create a healthy relationship, because you've got mutual interests, mutual friends, the opportunity to socialize with each other and with people. It's all healthy.
And one thing that I do, one piece of advice I would give to everybody: talk to people in the real world, not just online.
Oh, straight.
Go out into real spaces, meet real people face to face, and talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they are different from you, even if you don't agree with everything,
Yes, absolutely.
even if you're not on the same page about everything, get to know them, find their humanity, learn to appreciate that, even if you disagree with them on Lord knows what, whether it's politics, movies, music,
Absolutely, and that's
religion.
and every large city now. The folks out there who don't live near them. There's still always one near-ish by, right? Every state has a couple.
Yeah.
Right. Every large city in the country has a music scene, has some kind of an anime or cosplay convention.
Yeah, you have to dig for it sometimes. It might not be obvious, but it's there.
It exists, and so the things that you are interested in, there's going to be a scene for it where you're at. So know yourself and your own value and what you want. Okay. Follow your interests, and if you start meeting people that you are into that expect you to, or make you feel like you have to change things about yourself for them, you're meeting the wrong people.
It's like I have a buddy. I'm still friends with him. Went to high school with him, went to middle school with him, known him for 30 plus years now.
Mm-hmm.
He amassed an absolutely gargantuan anime collection
Okay.
when he was making 60 grand a year, but still living at home because he was saving up to buy a house. This was back in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a fact in one calendar year, he spent $32,000 on anime DVDs because he showed me the credit card bill.
Shit. Okay.
I saw what he had. He had rooms dedicated to his collection. And he ended up getting married,
Mm-hmm.
and he got rid of it all because his wife asked him to. Now, she was his first real relationship. I'm pretty sure he had not been physically intimate with a woman before this. He was kind of an awkward guy. Funny, like really great personality, but didn't have the best self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to talk about settling. That's what we mean by settling. When you are
Yeah.
giving up huge portions of yourself to appease another person who might not be the best fit for you because you are afraid you will not find anyone better. That's settling.
Yeah, yeah. That's that's hurtful. That hurts me to hear that somebody gave up that much of themselves to get married to somebody.
Yeah. Now, he and I have never sat and really discussed how he feels about that. I don't know that he would be honest with me about it.
Right.
We don't see each other much anymore. He lives 1,000 miles away.
Yeah.
I haven't physically seen him in over 20 years.
And I used to be involved in a lot of the role playing game world, playing D&D and shit like
Yeah.
that, right? And
I was a big Call of Cthulhu fan in the 90s.
And so I had friends who gave up gaming for relationships. And with it, they gave up a lot of their friends, right? And didn't hang out with people they'd known for years. And I'd say that out of the 4 or 5 people I know that really did that over the years,
Yeah.
one of them wound up being happy, right? Like they were gaming because that was somebody who was gaming because they didn't have a lot of other
Yeah.
interests, but
Right.
as soon as they got other interests, they were fine.
Yeah.
Right. The rest of them, they gave up something that was a big part of their childhood, teen years, early adulthood friendships, right? And a core part of their identity, gave it all up, and in doing so, wound up being bored and unhappy, and spending all their time with basically their wife's friends and social circle,
Yeah.
and never getting along.
Never give up your existing sense of community for a relationship. Because if you are in a relationship with someone who asks you to do that, they are not a good fit for you, no matter what.
They're probably not a good person either.
No. Do not let your partner isolate you.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Because people will try, and this is especially true when you're talking about toxic masculinity and toxic femininity. There is that tendency to try to isolate you from all of your friends, all of your social circle,
I have some experience here.
your community, to keep you all to themselves
Yeah.
for whatever reason. It's usually never a healthy. It's never a healthy reason, but
Even
the
when,
unhealthiness varies.
even when that your partner is a big part of your own community and social circle, a toxic person like that, where you have a shared social circle, will isolate you in some ways from that circle, even while you're integrated from it.
And you might not even notice that it's happening until after the relationship has ended and you realize what relationships with other people you don't have anymore.
Exactly. So look out for things like friendships that are slipping away, or partners that are always pulling you away from things that you're having a good time with, or people you're talking to. You're out in a social event, or you're going to go do something that you enjoy, and all of a sudden they just don't want to do that anymore, right? Those sorts of things kind of should be red flags that you look out for, because it's going to lead you down a path where you're going to be more and more isolated over time. And next thing you know, your sense of identity is gone, because you're not doing things you like to do, and you're not doing things you love to do.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is a person like that toxic feminine or toxic masculine person that isolates you, no longer sees you as interesting or desirable as they did when you were the person you were before that.
Yeah. You have to ask yourself, if you are interested in someone, why do you want to change them to be in a relationship with them?
Yeah.
Why are you not interested in them for who they are? And why is someone not interested in you for who you are?
Right. And I don't think enough people ask themselves those questions. So the other thing I would suggest, avoid some of the influencers out there on TikTok and pick up a book.
Read a book.
Read a book.
And that reminds me, there's something that I wanted to do that I talked to you about this earlier. Just people are not reading for pleasure in the way that they used to anymore, and I think that is absolutely tragic.
Yes.
Reading, it's one of the few media consumptions where you're truly active in the process. You are thinking, you are absorbing, you are physically engaged with what you're doing. It's not just something on a screen. Even video games, you're still reacting to what's on a screen. You're not really engaging with the content necessarily.
Right.
So what I would like to do was just every week give a suggestion for a piece of reading that somebody can sit down and read in a single setting, 25, 30 minutes, not a huge time sink, not asking people to read novels, but to give people a sense of why reading is important,
Okay.
what it can do for them, how it can help them understand the world better, and maybe develop a better sense of empathy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What do you got?
Uh, I thought about this a long time because when it comes to this particular author, I had easily 7 or 8 short stories that I could recommend.
Mm-hmm.
And this is someone who I believe to be the single greatest short story writer in the history of the English language.
Okay.
This is a man I hold in very high esteem, and he unfortunately left us a couple years back. But the story that I would love everyone to sit down and read is The Whimper of Whipped Dogs by Harlan Ellison.
Oh, okay.
It was written in the wake of the murder of Kitty Genovese in New York City, and I think it was 68 or 69. I can't remember the exact year. But the story that was reported in the media, and the actual truth is different from what was reported, as is often the case. But the story reported at the time was that this woman was brutally assaulted and murdered in the courtyard of an apartment building while onlookers in the apartment were watching from their windows and nobody did anything to help her.
Wow.
They just let her be assaulted and murdered in front of them. Like, people didn't even take the time to call the police. And when Ellison heard that, he was inspired to write a story based on that premise, and it is absolutely harrowing. I cannot recommend it highly enough. The Whimper of Whipped Dogs by Harlan Ellison.
Okay. Because you asked me about this a couple days ago, and I will be honest, I don't do a lot of reading for fun these days. I read a lot of news, but not a lot of reading for fun. That being said, there's an essayist I adore, and I think she is one of the best dissident essayists there is on the planet right now, Masha Gessen. Masha is a Russian Jew whose family survived the Holocaust. Some of them did, others did not. She has Polish relatives and Russian relatives.
And just for total clarity, the Holocaust did actually happen.
Yes.
It's a real thing, no matter what anybody might tell you otherwise.
Right, yeah. Now, if they're telling you... it
Just to
doesn't
put that one to rest right now, the Holocaust happened. It was real.
But I don't know how I could bake 6 million cookies. So, that's Nick Flint is for you guys. But Masha has this amazing way of writing words, and there's a number of her pieces I could recommend. But I would recommend right now, especially because of the poignance of the last year. She wrote a piece in the wake of the October 7th in Gaza and the world's response to things, and how the liberal West has overcorrected its fears of anti-Semitism, right, by basically giving Israel a free pass to do everything it's done.
Right.
And she wrote this piece titled "In the Shadow of the Holocaust," she weaves walking through the streets of Berlin and seeing all of the ways that the city of Berlin and the German government have commemorated or tried to commemorate their apology for the Holocaust, right? And made sure that the history is visible all throughout Berlin. And she's walking through the city, and she is thinking about the Holocaust and what Germany is doing, and then looking at the way that Germany is censoring dissident Jews who criticize Israel.
They have been unusually harsh compared to other Western powers in terms of pro-Palestinian movements in their country.
And 40% of those that they have arrested or punished have been Jewish.
It's the German way.
Right. So you can't stop anti-Semitism by protecting Jews from other Jews who criticize them. That doesn't do anything.
No, Jews are allowed to criticize Jews.
They are.
It's one of those things.
Yeah. So over 40% of everyone arrested in Germany for criticizing Israel in some capacity has been Jewish. And Masha Gessen was the winner of the Hannah Arendt Prize that year, who, I don't know if you're familiar with Hannah Arendt, another great Jewish writer who wrote about human rights. She was a Holocaust survivor who was one of the founders of Israel. And she was a critic of the state of Israel as well.
There's a lot to criticize.
There was a lot to criticize. And so Gessen won this prize, and the German government revoked the ceremony for writing this essay, right? And they had it as a quiet, private ceremony instead of the gala that they were going to have in honor of this dissident author. So, In the Shadow of the Holocaust by Masha Gessen, read it. It's
All
great.
right. Is that available online?
Yeah, easily.
Okay. What I will make sure to do then is I am going to find both things we've suggested, both readings we've suggested this week online, if at all possible, and I will put links to both in the description.
Oh, fuck, you're right.
So everybody can just click and go.
Sweet. All right.
It's not the same as physically holding a book in your hand, which is a beautiful tactile
Yeah.
sensation that's meaningful. I highly recommend it. Don't just read on your phone or your computer or your tablet if you can avoid it. Physically hold a book. The smell, the turning of the pages, it's an entire experience, but I'll make sure to find links to both of the readings for this week.
Excellent.
So that anybody who wants to can take 15, 20 minutes or however long it takes and maybe get a better understanding of the world.
Excellent.
All right. I think that is it for this week.
I think so. That has been the Grift. So, give us all your money.
Give us all your money. If there's one message that I think everyone can agree on, it's that.
Give us.
You should give us all your money.
Give us all your money.
Till next time.
What did you think?
Good.